My own daughter turned my husband against me. The betrayal that erased my life. Imagine raising your daughter with unconditional love, only to discover she's secretly plotting against you. A stranger can wound you and walk away. A daughter learns where your soft places live and presses there with perfect aim. People imagine betrayal arriving loud, slammed doors, shouted names, the executioner's drum. Mine came as a change in weather, pressure you can't see, only feel in your bones. For years I called our house safe. David worked. I made a life that wrapped around his hours and our daughter's needs. Emily was the axis I spun on, my pride, my unfinished poem. I used to wonder what I'd be without motherhood. I never imagined I'd have to find out. It began with tiny edits to how stories were told. We'd live a moment together, and then I'd hear its revised edition told to David later that night. If I asked Emily to put her phone down at dinner, she'd later sigh to him. Mom's always looking for a reason to shame me. If I checked in about homework, it became, she doesn't trust me to breathe without permission. Each retelling shaved off context until I was a caricature. Controlling, joyless, impossible to please. At first David chuckled. She's being dramatic. I thought so too. Teenagers test fences. But a fence only matters if someone helps you keep it standing. Slowly, David's chuckles turned into frowns. He started watching me mid-sentence as if bracing for impact. I noticed the way he and Emily began sharing looks over my shoulder. Those micro-alliances built in eyebrow twitches and half-smiles. In the space between their glances, I went missing. I tried to adjust the thermostat of our home, the little rituals of warmth I'd always used. Friday pancakes, Sunday walks. I invited Emily to plan dinners, to choose the route, the movie, the music. She accepted with a sweetness that set my teeth on edge, the way syrup can hide the taste of something gone sour. When it came time to show up, she'd flake and later tell David that I'd changed the plan to punish her. He'd stare at his shoes. Could you meet her halfway, he'd ask. Halfway to where? I wondered if the map keeps changing. There were nights I'd stand in the doorway of Emily's room, watching her sleep the way I used to when she was small, searching her face for the baby I knew. In the dark, I could still find her, the fluttering breath, the sliver of thumb near her cheek. Then morning would come, and with it a new script, words so measured they could have been practiced. I feel unsafe when you question me. You're invalidating my experience. You love control more than you love me. The first time she said that last line, she held my gaze to see if it landed. It did. I'm still digging it out. I suggested therapy. Emily didn't laugh. She smiled like someone who had just placed a chess piece exactly where she wanted. I'm glad you're finally admitting you're the issue, she said. To David, she needs individual therapy first. He nodded, relieved to have instructions. The relief hurt more than the nod. There were other hands in this. I felt it, an older vocabulary stitched to younger anger. Suddenly, Emily had a lexicon that wasn't hers 6 months earlier. Gaslighting, boundaries, emotional neglect. All important words, real words, but wielded like a cudgel, not a lens. She accused me of things I didn't recognize, then acted triumphant when I couldn't defend against ghosts. I went to my room and cried quiet. Grown woman sobs into a towel so the house wouldn't hear. When the curfew fight came, it wasn't about curfew. That's how these wars work. A small hill chosen to bury a mother on. Weeknight, 11:58 p.m., the front door opened like a throat clearing. I stepped into the hall. Emily, lit blue by her phone, blinked at me with a calm that made me want to scream. We agreed on 11, I said. You agreed, she corrected, brushing by. My autonomy doesn't end at your bedtime. David came down the stairs as if he'd been waiting behind a curtain. He didn't shout. He did something worse. He took a side, publicly. Let's not escalate, he told me, and in the corners of those words I heard a verdict. You are the escalator. Emily watched us, head tilted, absorbing power like a plant absorbs sun. The days after were quiet, then not. My phone pinged with a message from David. We should talk tonight. The kind of text that knocks the air right out of you. I cooked anyway, muscle memory. He didn't touch the food. Emily sat at the counter scrolling, unbothered. She told me things, he said, and I learned how fast a floor can tilt. Years of our marriage collapsed into a pile labeled evidence I couldn't recognize. I reached for him. He moved back. I need space, he said, and I thought of astronauts untethered, drifting, the line to the ship severed. He slept in the guest room. I slept beside the shape he used to leave. I started looking for patterns because naming is the first mercy we can offer ourselves. There were scripts. How Emily mirrored David's language. How conflicts blew up right before milestones. Exams, recitals, holidays. Moments when a mother often matters most. There were gaps too, like when I asked about her new friend Claire. She helps me, Emily said, and later learned Claire wasn't a friend at all but David's sister, newly involved in Emily's life. She's mentoring, David said. Mentoring what? I asked, and he didn't answer. I opened old photos to remind myself we'd once been three people who laughed in the same key. There was Emily at 9, cheeks flushed, chocolate-smeared mouth over-smiling beside a lopsided cake we'd baked together. There we were at the beach, David's arm around my waist, Emily's head thrown back, mouth wide and joyful. The images felt like evidence from a crime scene. See? They loved you once. I wanted to climb inside them and live there. Instead, I put my phone down and walked through a house that was beginning to treat me like a guest. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was administrative. A calendar event moved without telling me. A family chat spun up where I wasn't included. A doctor's appointment rescheduled and forgotten. When I asked, David said, "It must have slipped." When I pressed, Emily said, "Your anxiety is exhausting." I began to doubt my own memory, then resented myself for doubting. That's the trick of it. You start policing your mind to survive your home. I reached for small defiance. I left a note on the fridge, "Family dinner Friday. No phones, pancakes on me." Emily crossed out "no phones" with a glitter pen and wrote, "Respect autonomy." I laughed, an ugly, wounded sound. Then I baked anyway. They didn't come. The night the air broke, it was raining. The kind that turns streetlights soft and windows into mirrors. David stood in the kitchen like a man delivering news he'd already rehearsed alone. Emily lingered in the doorway, pretending to search for tea. He spoke gently, as if kindness could disguise the blade. "This isn't working," he said. "We're not good for each other right now." He suggested I take a little time away so everyone could reset. Emily didn't look at me. She looked at him, and the look said good. I said nothing. Language felt like a room where the furniture had been rearranged in the dark. I went upstairs, folded the sort of clothes you pack when you don't know who you'll need to be tomorrow, and placed them in a bag that used to carry picnic blankets. In the mirror, I saw a woman I recognized and didn't. The same jaw, the same mouth, the eyes of someone who had too recently learned that love can be rewritten if the author changes. On my way out, I passed Emily in the hall. For a breath, our shoulders nearly touched. I wanted to ask if she remembered the night I sat up with her when she had croup, counting seconds between her breaths and mine. I wanted to ask if she knew that my love was large enough to hold all her storms without naming her a hurricane. Instead, I said, "I love you," because it was true, and because it was the only thing not under revision. She blinked, and the blink looked like victory. The quiet knock. At the door, rain clattered its hard little truths against the glass. I reached for the handle and felt a vibration in my pocket. A notification from an old, forgotten device still synced to our family accounts. A single preview line stared up at me. Clarity, week 4 talking points. I froze with my hand on the knob, the house breathing behind me, the storm hissing beyond. If there was a script, I would find it. If there was a hand guiding hers, I would learn its name. I didn't leave. Not yet. When my husband handed me a bag instead of his hand, I realized exile can be disguised as politeness. David didn't thunder. He lowered his voice until it scraped bone. "A hotel, just for a while," he said, like he was offering me mercy. But mercy without trust is exile dressed in soft clothes. Emily stood behind him on the stairs, a porcelain figure observing her own masterpiece. I carried the bag to my car, but before I turned the key, my phone buzzed. That forgotten tablet, our shared family account, still breathed. A notification blinked. Clarity, week 4 talking points. My hands shook as I opened the sync. Inside was a list typed with surgical precision. Stay calm when mom escalates. Use dad's phrases. Say you feel unsafe. Remind him of her patterns. Patterns. A word meant to save lives, now a scalpel against mine. I printed everything. Scripts, highlighted articles about toxic mothers, even a mock dialogue with notes in the margins. Whoever had been coaching Emily wasn't just planting seeds. They'd drawn a map. And the handwriting in one scanned file? Claire's, David's sister. A woman who'd once told me, over wine, that I was too intense for him. I met my friend Marina the next morning. She read the pages, face tight with rage. "This isn't rebellion," she said. "This is a campaign." Her word landed heavy. Campaigns require generals. Emily wasn't old enough to build this alone. And David? He had signed his silence in the margins of every lie. I hired a lawyer. He used sterile words: undue influence, custodial interference, falsified documents. He told me what courts cared about: timestamps, metadata, signatures. He didn't ask about heartbeats, lullabies, or the way betrayal sounds when spoken in your husband's voice. The first hearing wasn't about love, it was about access. I showed the judge scripts written from my daughter's mouth. The judge's brow furrowed, then smoothed back into neutrality. A protective order was placed between me and Claire. No more documents signed in my name. No more mentoring that produced rehearsed monologues. That night, I sat alone in a sublet that smelled of other people's dinners, staring at walls that didn't yet know my name. Recovery didn't feel like triumph. It felt like hunger. Then the school counselor called. She wanted to confirm my self-reported alcoholism. My stomach dropped. My what? She emailed me a form. My name, my forged signature, an admission I never wrote. On the bottom, prepared by C. Turner. Claire's full name. The forgery made something inside me solidify. This wasn't only estrangement. It was erasure. I wrote a letter to Emily, not an indictment, but a pulse. I told her love survives, even distorted echoes. I attached the forged documents, the coaching notes. I didn't demand she believe me. I only begged her to choose a belief that was hers, not scripted. 3 nights later, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. "Mom." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "If I tell you something, will you promise not to use it against Dad?" I sat very still. "Say it." Her breath hitched. It wasn't just Claire. Dad asked her to help me. He said admissions officers liked independent stories, that separating from you would look strong. He thought it would make me better. I thought it would make me loved. I signed some things I didn't understand. Her confession tore and stitched me at the same time. My husband wasn't just complicit, he was the architect. He had outsourced cruelty to his sister, then hidden behind Emily's young hands. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hold her. Instead, I said, "Come tomorrow." Alone. No scripts. No witnesses. 3 questions. What did you learn? What did it cost? What do you want that doesn't require anyone to disappear? She wept. Okay. After the call, I walked through the small apartment, arranging it like a tribunal that could hold tenderness. A round table, 2 chairs, tea for warmth, a small clock, not to rush us but to remind us time could be shared. I placed a box for phones on the windowsill. I wrote rules on index cards, speak in first person, no quoting other people, pause when breath turns sharp, say reset when the old script sneaks in. On the last card, I drew a line down the center. Left, what happened? Right, how it felt. No arrows between them, just 2 columns of truth, side by side, refusing to eat each other alive. Before bed, I opened the old photo albums again. There we were, birthday cakes, crooked teeth, sunburned shoulders, faces unguarded. I whispered into the dark, "Please remember we were once this." Not as plea, but as reminder that stories can be rewritten, even cruel ones. In the morning, I brewed tea and waited. The door. At 9:02 a.m., a knock. Gentle, then firmer. My hand hovered over the knob. Behind it, my daughter stood. No script, no ally, only the weight of what we'd both lost. The doors separated 2 futures. One where we rebuilt carefully, another where silence became our only language. And I had to decide which world to let in.